Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome to Catching Up on Cinema. If you aren't familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So it is the month of November 2021, and is once again that special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. Glad to be back and ready to talk about some Blu-rays. It's going to be a fun time.
Oh, yeah. Very, very excited for this one. So something that we had started a few months back via our Tales from the Shelf show format was at some point we ran out of good ideas for episode formats for the show. So we decided, maybe we should try some of that alphabetical shit. So a while back we did an episode entitled All the A's. And the general premise of the show is basically we peruse our respective movie collections, that would be our DVDs, our Blu-rays, and our 4K discs, and just share some war stories, share a few things, a few thoughts about the movies in our collections. So in following that theme of all the A's, I think it's only fair that, you know, it took a few months to get around to it, but let's get down to exploring a basket of bees, or a bucket of bees, something full of bees that involves a bee. Because alliteration is not something I practice very often in my daily life, but for whatever reason, that's what we do on the show.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, my name starts with a B, Blu-ray, B. I mean, bees are all over the place. I'm hyped for this one.
It's funny. Whenever I think of bees, two movies come to mind, Brad. Well, no, three. And I'm gonna ask you the same. Like, what movies come to mind when you think of bees in cinema?
Oh, like the letter B, not like actual bees.
I mean, for me, it's like impossible not to think of both at the same time. So in this case, you're going to get literal bees. But the first one that comes to mind is Tommy Boy, wherein Chris Farley demonstrates the technique for avoiding getting a DUI. Basically, you drive recklessly, crash into whatever nearby, like soft objects are nearby, then you kick open the door, start whacking yourself over the head, screaming, "Bees! Bees! My God, millions of bees! They're ripping my flesh!" And then if you're lucky, one of the cops, if not all the cops, they're trying to pull you over, will have a severe allergy and will just drive away and abandon you.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. I mean, I've never done it. I've only actually been pulled over once, so maybe next time.
Yeah, most of my encounters with cops have been, on the road anyway, have been after my car broke down, and they were just, like, checking, like, "Are you dead?" It's like, "No, sir, I'm not." And it's like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to do anything to help you, but I'm going to leave you alone. Good night." It's like, okay. Way to go!
Yeah, you should have been like, my car's broken down, and then he'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I can't help you," and be like, there's bees. You gotta call a tow truck. They can deal with the bees.
I mean, yeah, maybe that would have put some hustle on them. Just like the knowledge that not only is this man's car broken down, he's being assaulted by bees that for some reason won't leave his car. It's like, does he have like a bunch of bees nests like just in his trunk or something? Like, what the fuck is this guy's deal? It's like, either way, it warrants a response, which is, again, more than I usually got in those circumstances. But the other movie that comes to mind is The Good Son. No, not The Good Son. It's the other Macaulay Culkin movie, where it's like a youth romance film, and it's like him and this girl.
Oh, my
girl, yeah. And yeah, that's literally the only thing I remember from that movie is that Macaulay Culkin eats shit via bee stings at the end.
Spoilers.
for My Girl.
No, it's I think I saw that movie a long time ago when I was younger, so that's fair game. But yeah, that's a good one. I didn't think about that. Obviously, Bee Movie, the Jerry Seinfeld classic. Can't go wrong there. I don't know. I don't even know if I should mention the obvious one. I mean,
please, just by all means.
The Wicker Man, of course, the Nick Cage classic.
Yeah, no. Brad and I had talked before we even started recording that, like, in discussing the potential titles for this episode, it's like, well, we got to use a picture of Nick Cage screaming about bees to promote the damn thing. So look forward to that. Well, I mean, that'll probably be posted before this, but anyway.
Oh, how do we forget Candyman? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, I actually have been meaning to, not only check out the new one, but also revisit the original. Because I do remember thinking, did Clive Barker actually direct that? Or was he just like the creative lead behind the original?
I don't think he directed it.
Okay, well, either way, he was involved, and he has some interesting creative sensibilities when it comes to how he approaches his horror and whatnot. And I remember that first Candyman, the original Candyman, being pretty solid. Like, in particular, what struck me about it was, like, the neighborhood itself, like the tenement building that most of the action takes place in, is probably far and away the scarier part of the story than the Candyman himself. And I think that was a very conscious decision on the part of the production. But yeah, I'd like to check out that new one because it looked kind of like distractingly art housey to some degree. Like I wasn't expecting shadow puppets in my Candyman, but that was purely what I got from the promotion for it. But from a purely like visual standpoint, the shots that they used for the trailer actually look pretty snazzy. So I'm curious to see if it's any good. You ended up reviewing that for your podcast, the Cinema Speak podcast, correct?
Yeah, I don't know if we give it a full review. I definitely saw it and talked about it, but yeah, it was okay. Like it looked good. It had a few striking sequences, but it was a little messy. Like it just didn't click or come together fully for some reason for me. But it's worth checking out for sure.
I mean, that's the vibe I get from the zeitgeist, or the lack thereof, honestly, is nobody really talked about after it came out. Like the hype was big for it, even with the delays and whatnot. But then as soon as it came out, it's like, weirdly enough, there don't seem to be very many critics like openly talking about this movie. So I would imagine maybe it didn't overly impress.
Yeah, well, it is out on 4K this week, so you can check it out and some quality content there.
Okay, well, I'd like to get to that. Unfortunately, on this week's episode of Catching Up on Cinema, I did disclose that I bought a bag full of shit, a bag full of like $2 to $3 movies that I'll have to plow through at some point. So I'll probably have to do that before I can move on to the Candyman. But anyway, Brad, let's say we dig into our bucket/basket of bees, and so I'm gonna do my hosting duty here and throw you under the bus and have you give us our first movie for our current Tales from the Shelf discussion.
Yeah, all right. Well, we were kind of talking, and I said, there's a lot of bees in my collection. Not great. I didn't feel like I could talk about them that much. But I got a decent selection here. We'll see how it goes. I'll start with this one, which I think is an underrated movie. Feel like not a lot of people saw it. And part of the reason is because it did kind of get buried when it came out. And that is directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. Big Trouble. Which I saw this movie a bunch. I think it was like on Comedy Central all the time in like the mid to late 2000s, and I really like this movie. I think it's a ton of fun. I think the cast, this is a huge cast. Tim Allen, Rene Russo, let's see, you've got Stanley Tucci, the My Name is Earl guy, Andy Richter, Sofia Vergara, Omar Epps, Jareen Garofalo, Patrick Warburton, Dennis Farina, Johnny Knoxville, Tom Sizemore. The list goes on. The list goes on and on. That's pretty much it. Ben Foster, and it's obviously, I think this movie was supposed to come out in 2001, and it does have a plot involving a bomb on a plane. So unfortunately, from what I understand, it was buried. It got a quiet release in 2002, so that might be part of the reason why it never caught on. But I don't know. It's fun. It big cast of characters and a bunch of stories that are kind of one of those movies where a bunch of separate characters to start, and they sort of get mixed up together as the film goes on. And it's not like a hilarious film. Like, I don't really watch it, and like I'm not sitting there and just but it certainly is just very entertaining. I think the direction is pretty solid. It moves at a great pace. and it's one that I'm always interested in going back to, just because it is an easy watch and it's fun. It's just fun. Big Trouble. Put out through Kino. The Blu-ray doesn't look that good, and there's only an audio commentary, so a little light. But glad to just have it on disc. And it's definitely a fun one.
Yeah, I know I've seen it, but for whatever reason, I can't remember it, and that may be because, like, just based on the cover and the construction of that ensemble cast and the fact that it's a caper, like, my wires get crossed because I'm thinking of Get Shorty and Be Cool and Big Trouble, like, all kind of in the same vein. So, like, I know for a fact I've seen it, but all my memories of those movies are kind of intertwined, and it's difficult for me to create separation there, but... Man, big cast of really likable people in there, though. Damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them before they were, names, like Zooey Deschanel. I think she was she's playing like a high schooler in this, I think, but she was probably in her early 20s or whatever. But, early Ben Foster role, like, a lot of people who were kind of on the down. Like, I feel like Tim Allen was just starting to descend from his heights of stardom. And then you got a lot of people on the up, so you got an interesting mix of people in there.
Yeah, and Barry Sonnenfeld, for the most part, is no slouch. Like, he does have some ups and downs in his career, but some of his ups are pretty far up there. As far as I know, his like similar to some of the actors you named there was like a cutoff date where his relevancy started to wane, and it was probably starting around the early 2000s. But he has given us some very solid films prior to that. But it's funny. It's funny you mentioned Patrick Warburton is in the cast there. I was talking about him and Tim Allen last night with my girlfriend because I had to confess that there was a Tim Allen movie out there that for whatever reason I have seen an obscene number of times, and it's not Big Trouble. It is Joe Somebody.
Okay. I've seen that once.
I don't know
a number of times.
I don't know why I've seen it so many times. I just have. But what I was explaining to her was the novelty behind having both Tim Allen and Patrick Warburton in the same film. Not only that, but like coming to blows with each other, because in terms of like their careers as voice actors and their relationship to the Disney Corporation, they've both played Buzz Lightyear at one time or another. So it's like the battle of the buzzes. It's like the movie buzz versus the TV buzz. And it's like, I got my money on Putty, man. Like, 8 ball, right here. High five. like, all my money's going on Warburton. But I've always really liked him. He's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like him a lot. I do like Tim Allen. I mean, I'll just throw it out there. I mean, I know he's a rat.
Yeah.
But I do like him quite a bit in his movies and his shows. I used to love Home Improvement. I think he's a really just likable comedic. Like, he's not like, again, I'm not watching him and just like thinking, man, this guy, his jokes, his gags are amazing. But he's very likable, very charismatic, and sometimes that's all you need. Genius.
I mean, it's simple. It's as simple as it gets, and yet somehow it still makes me giggle a little bit. But I mean, I'm not sure if I'd call myself a Tim Allen fan. I've watched a lot of his movies. Home Improvement is a funny one though, because like I came to this realization at the dinner table with my family like within the past year or so, where I had to like realize that like, I don't think wholesomeness was like okay in my house, because like all the family television and stuff, like it just never got played ever. Mm-hmm. Like none of the TGIF stuff, Home Improvement, anything with a on the laugh track, like any sitcom that had like a tender moment or something. It's like, no, we never watched any of that shit. It's like Home Improvement. I think I didn't really watch it till I was like in college and watching like afternoon TBS programming and stuff like Becker and fucking Becker and Yes Dear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely. So you watch more like Seinfeld? Is that kind of more the sitcom?
Frasier was a really big hit with my parents.
Frasier,
yeah, especially because I'm born and raised in Seattle, so like having a sitcom that takes place in your backyard is not something every place gets to enjoy. But yeah, Frasier was a big hit. Seinfeld absolutely was a huge hit. Friends, not so much. But then again, that that's representative of like my parents' age. Like, I don't think they gave a shit about young people fucking in the city. And by the time I was old enough to be interested in such things, it was like in syndication, playing like all night, every night. And so I caught a few episodes here and there, but it wasn't my show. But Big Trouble is one that I'll have to come back to, because like I said, there are a lot of good components featured in that, such that it's hard for me to think of it as like being dull. It's like, at the very least, it'll have energy to it. It'll keep you entertained. So yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I'll have to see if it's like available on like a streaming service that I might have at the moment.
Yeah, a little bit of some, light Tarantino influences there. It's either the crime elements and some of the dialogue maybe trying to be a little too clever at times, but I think it works for the most part. I think it's just, it's a fun film.
Okay, well, it's a solid B to start us off. So I guess the ball is to me. So I'll start things off with a movie that I don't know if it was buried. Like you said, Big Trouble had been. Man, that delay for having a bomb on a plane subplot probably cost that one some publicity. But
yeah,
I don't know if this movie was buried. However, I do think it's probably underseen, and that's largely coming down to lack of marketing and lack of marketability. That would be Bushwick, starring Dave Bautista.
Oh, is this maybe I'm thinking of something else. Was this a Netflix movie, or who directed this?
Let me check, because I actually don't know off the top of my head. It's directed by Carrie Murnion and Jonathan Millot.
Those are my boys. Those are my boys who they reached out to me on Twitter.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the occasion?
They directed Becky, which we did for our 200th episode, and I don't think I tagged them. I think I just hashtagged Becky on Instagram, and one of them, I can't remember which one, listened to our episode and had a few comments on it, and it was kind of cool. And I've been meaning to check this one out because I commented back. I was like, hey, thanks for the movie. We had fun with it. I can't wait to check out all your other movies. And I haven't gotten around to this one. So tell me, am I missing out on this?
Well, I'm blown away. I had no idea that these fellas had directed Becky, because I of course listened to that episode, and I haven't watched the movie myself. I haven't seen Becky, but off the strength of that episode, I can tell you right now, it sounds like I would have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I most certainly enjoyed this film, Bushwick, which I believe may be their first film, if not one of their very early films. But this is a very ambitious piece of filmmaking. I forget what year exactly it came out. If I had to guess, like 2016, 2017, around there. Yeah, 2016. But this story concerns a American insurgency, basically some like militia groups in the American South make an armed intrusion into the northern regions, and the opening shots of the movie see helicopters landing in the streets of New York. Bushwick is the name of a neighborhood in New York, as far as I understand. And basically, the film turns into like a moment-to-moment kind of survival experience for just some random people caught in the crossfire during this American like outbreak of civil war, essentially. And it's a really ambitious piece of filmmaking. The first 10 to 15 minutes, I believe, are shot to appear as if it's a single take. I mean, there is evidence, like, apparent that, like, oh, there's a cut, but it never detracts from the experience. And just the staging of the action, given the resources they had at their disposal, you can tell this was shot on a budget for sure. But the staging of the action doesn't suffer for it at all. The editing is superb when there are edits, because a lot of these shots are done in very, very long takes. But yeah, the intensity level is kept very high throughout the entire experience. Sound design is very, very solid. There's a lot of ambient sound work going on pretty much whenever we're patrolling the streets or trying to like flee the scene of violence and whatnot. And Bautista gives a really nuanced performance. Like his introduction in the film, it's it's almost like watching candid footage of like a bear attack or something, because like the camera's positioned very low and just this like massive shadow charges into the room, and you don't even really get a good idea. Like, you don't get a good look at what's happening, but it's like, that's a very large man just manhandling two very small men. And like, I made kind of a gag out of talking about that portion of the film, though, because like, he is completely out of breath. Like, he is totally gassed after. I mean, he straight up murders two dudes with his bare hands in front of a, like, I think she's a college-aged girl, and she's like freaking the fuck out. But he's just going for like the next 10 minutes of the movie, and it gets a little bit obnoxious. But thankfully, like, he gets injured, and then when they patch him up, I think is when we get our opening title and we get our first explicit cut in the action. But until then, it's just like, so much happens where it's like, we follow this young girl from a subway. We get to see her boyfriend get immolated with like a Molotov cocktail. She like runs away from gunfire and just like ducks into the basement of an apartment building, and then meets fucking Drax the Destroyer. And then I think they go to like a school or something, and then like, before you know it, 10-15 minutes have passed, and it's like, I don't think I've seen like a single obvious cut in the action. But after that, it turns almost into like a slightly like video gamey type experience, like mostly because it's like follow the waypoint type plotting, where it's like, we need to get to this place to get this item, or we need to go to this place to talk to this guy so we can relay a message to this guy, which will then open the next checkpoint, and then you can advance to stage 2, the slums, or something like that. But it's a really awesome movie, and on a conceptual level, like, I hate to say it, but in this country, in the United States, like, there are times when things like this don't feel that far-fetched. like you know, like, we're constantly butting heads on a political and a cultural level from region to region, and you know, it I hate to say it, but these days it doesn't feel that far off, such that like, it was vetoed, but I had floated the idea of doing an American Insurgency month of podcasts, because there are a lot of movies that deal with this very subject. What's the is it Standoff at something Creek, like Sparrow Creek?
Sparrow Creek, the Standoff at
I've been
Sparrow
meaning
Creek?
to watch that movie because of the subject matter. It's, and also the cast. Like, I like James Badge Dale quite a bit. I think he's a very useful tool, like an incredible asset to any production he's involved in. He's not a leading man type guy for the most part, as far as I understand, but he seems very
check out
cozy.
The Empty Man then.
Has my ticket expired? Like, am I on the naughty list by now?
Yeah, you're not in on the ground floor anymore. I think the time has passed.
Yeah. So, folks at home, if you're not aware of this, be rad. Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast is a strong advocate for the Empty Man, which of course is a horror film that came out fairly recently, like within the past 2 years, and he's been saying it. He's been saying it for months on end. Like, you got to get on it. You got to get on it. Otherwise, you're going to be one of those hanger-ons. You're going to be one of those guys who's late to the party and looks like one of those schlubs that lacks creativity and is just like, oh, I like the Empty Man too. It's like, yeah, we've all liked the Empty Man for like 2 years now. Where have you been?
Yeah, because in 10 years, people are going to be like, man, the Empty Man, you got to see it. I can't believe nobody saw this when it came out. And at this point, I think the time has passed. But if there was a window and you could have gotten in on the ground floor and been like, I was on the ground floor of the Empty Man before any of these fuckers.
Yeah, Brad's got the OG status when it comes to the Empty Man fandom. But yeah, I do know he's in that. And it is a movie that I'd like to see, of course, just based on what I heard from you and some of your buddies and whatnot. But yeah, James Badge Dale is in the Standoff at Sparrow Creek, and it sounded like almost like a play to some extent. Like, it seemed like it's mostly a single location, mostly just like intimate drama type film, not an action film, not anything to that extent. But the subject matter sounded very intriguing to me.
Yeah, I did see that a while ago when it first came out. I don't remember much, but I think I enjoyed it for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I definitely got to check out Bushwick. That's what it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, my boys Carrie and Jonathan, right? I think Jonathan. Yeah,
Jonathan Malott and Carrie Murnian.
And just in case Carrie or Jonathan are listening, I just want to say, love you guys. Also, Jonathan, love you on Letterboxd, man. He's on Letterboxd. I don't think Carrie is. If he is, I don't follow him. But
get on
Jonathan,
it, Carrie.
Yeah, get on it, Carrie. Jonathan, love you on Letterboxd. I mean, if you want to give me a follow, please do. Yeah, they're seem like cool guys, and I did like Becky a fair bit, and this one I do want to check out because it sounds good, and maybe now you're gonna light a fire under my ass, and maybe I will check it out.
Yeah, it's a fun and ambitious project. It kind of fills a niche that appeals to me very specifically because I really enjoy seeing people try to accomplish a lot with a little. Like I have that creative tool in my head where I can fill in the blanks. Like I can give things a pass when I can see that, money is a huge asset to any production, and sometimes you just don't have it. But that doesn't mean that you don't try your best. And of course, there are instances in this one where it's like, they make a very big, like, decent action spectacle with very little. Like, a lot of his simple smoke and mirrors, like literal smoke, just like smoke machines, and very, very clever lighting and sound design to create the sense of like a larger scale conflict than what was actually enacted. But there's a lot going on. It's well acted in a lot of places. They make use of a lot of the scenarios and the character ideas that you would expect for subject matter like this and like an event like this. So yeah, I was very, very impressed, such that now that I know that they made Becky, that gives me even more incentive to check that one out. And my God, I've told you this plenty of times, Brad, that I am a sucker for seeing especially comedic actors play against type. Like I would very much love to see John Lovitz be a hard-boiled action hero someday. Like that would be a dream come true. No. But like Kevin James playing,
Oh yeah, okay.
Like an evil guy who's truly the bad guy of the picture. It's not something that I think anybody would have expected, and it doubles as a selling point for the film. So for me, it's like a chance to see Kevin James do a role like that, in addition to being directed by two fellows who seem to know what they're doing. It's a good selling point for me in particular.
It's a win-win. I mean, you got Joel McHale in there too. He's he's a comedy guy. So there you go. You got two comedians. I mean, the one's not a villain, but they're both playing it straight.
I mean, that's a big one actually, because I think Joel McHale is a local boy. I think he's from around my parts.
This is going to be your movie of last year.
My movie of last year. The story of my life. I very seldom see the new movies when they're new. I get to them when I get to them. I'm too busy watching my pillowcase full of $2 DVDs, including the likes of Another Stakeout, The Meg, and Black Mask 2, City of Masks. Thank you very much.
I was going to say, this guy's just now catching up on The Meg. It'll be a few more years before it gets to Becky. Sorry, Jonathan and Carrie.
Anyway, that's enough about Bushwick. Brad, what you got next?
Well, this would be the perfect opportunity to pull out Becky.
Yes.
Which I do own.
You do?
Unfortunately, I believe it is at my parents' place right now. So I don't have it on me.
What are you going to do?
Damn it! All my goddamn family video purchases are over. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that, because then Jonathan and Carrie, I didn't buy it secondhand at Family Video, because then they wouldn't get any of their royalties, I don't think.
Yeah,
but,
you bought it direct from their GeoCities page.
Yeah. But let's see here. Let's go with a good one. I mean, they're all good. They're in my collection. They're all good, right?
Sure,
but
Brad.
Let's go with a real good one. This movie, I think it was in my top 100 when I made my top 100 list. I believe it was in there. And that is a Brian De Palma film, and that is Blowout, which is a Criterion, stars John Travolta and Nancy Allen. And, this is just a great sort of conspiracy thriller. Very watchable. Probably my favorite De Palma movie. I think it's it's one of his just like tightest and most entertaining, very, heavy on his style. And I love John Lithgow in it. Not John Lovitz, John Lithgow. I think he's great as the villain. Although, John Lovitz could have been good.
Very different
quite
film.
The size.
Yeah, very different film for sure.
Yeah, he doesn't have the size. I don't know how he would have, done some of those kills that John Lithgow does. But yeah, great movie. Love the ending. The thing with the scream.
Yep.
And I guess I better not say anything else. But great ending. Just feels like a classic ending, like classic Hollywood almost. And it's a great sort of conspiracy thriller. A lot of fun. John Travolta rocks in it. Check it out if you haven't already. The Criterion Blu-ray is just a nice set. I will say, not a fan of the cover art, the artwork. I'm not a fan. I don't know. It's too busy. It's just like you look at it, you don't even know what to look at. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that cover artwork, but film rocks. Who knows? I would not be surprised if this is something that could potentially get upgraded to 4K through Criterion now that those floodgates have opened. So maybe buyer beware, but there you go.
Yeah, that's right. They are putting out their first 4K discs this month, correct?
I think I could be mistaken, but I think today. I believe today is the day.
Today's
Mulholland
the day.
Drive.
Yeah.
I believe Mulholland Drive came out today on 4K.
And then, they have Uncut Gems and Citizen Kane on the way as well?
Yep, and Menace to Society as well.
Okay.
And I think The Piano, was announced as a 4K as well.
Damn.
So, yeah, a lot of interesting ones. It's kind of bummer because it's like I already own Mulholland Drive and Uncut Gems. And so it's like, well, shit. Do I want to upgrade? And I just watched Citizen Kane last year for Mank, so it's like, well, I don't own it, but I just when am I going to watch that again? But never seen Menace to Society, so I'll be picking that one up for sure.
Okay, well, let me know how the 4K turns out, because it's a new venture for them. It's plenty of things can go wrong when it's a new format for a distributor.
Yeah.
But Blowout is a great film. My dad had me watch that one when I was probably too young to really grasp most of what was going on, but he was really up on it. That and The Marathon Man and a few other spy thrillers from that era, a few other espionage thrillers from the 70s and late 60s and whatnot. And Blowout was very high on his personal list of movies that he appreciated from that era. The end of that one, we're not going to spoil it here because it is a sensational film, but the ending of that one is for the books, man. That's top tier kind of shit, but
it's a good scream. It's a good scream. It's a good scream. I don't know why it's Marlon Brando, but it's a good scream. It's a good scream.
Hey, shit. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad. Was Nancy Allen also his gal pal in Carrie?
I think she was in Carrie. Yeah, because that's right. He was in Carrie too. I think you're right.
Yeah. I don't know which came first, but the image of both of them with very big hair, it sticks out in my mind as being something I've seen more than once.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Carrie was first. I'll say if I had to, I know we're here because we're loving movies. We're hyping up these movies in our collection. We love them, but if I got to be a little critical, not super crazy about Nancy Allen in Blowout. Not super crazy about her in it, but it's fine. She's all right.
I think she's a good actress. I haven't seen her enough to say that that's true or not. She was very good in Carrie, and of course, same director, Brian De Palma. But I always think of her as a RoboCop's gal pal because she was fantastic in that. A very unfortunate haircut in that one, but it was done semi-strategically because the people involved with the production were like, we don't want people to ask whether or not RoboCop and Nancy Allen can sleep together. Therefore, we'll give her a really shitty haircut to distract people, to keep people from thinking that maybe that's a possibility. And it seems to have worked out because I don't think I've ever heard anyone bring that up, except for the people that made the damn movie. But Blowout's one that I probably should go back and rewatch because, like I said, I did see it for sure. My dad like sat me down. He was like, "We're watching Blowout." It's like, why? It's like, 'cause it's fucking Blowout. It's awesome. It's like, okay, I don't even know what this is, but sure. But I was pretty young. I don't think I got all the nuances of it, but I got enough to retain that ending. And also just on a purely conceptual level, like especially now that I have the appreciation for film and filmmaking that I do these days, having our protagonist be a sound engineer is a very unique angle to approach things from, such that I feel like I would get a lot more out of that now as an adult than I did as a child.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, definitely, a lot of these mouth breathers are like, sound is just like, you just recorded what happens. There's nothing, sound is whatever. You just record it and the sound's there, right? And then you watch this, and you're like, no, you watch that park scene and tell me sound is not an integral part of the filmmaking experience. Huge.
Oh yeah, no, sound is can make or break a film. Honestly, like one thing that's really fun to do for me anyway is like sometimes when I'll be like perusing the Instagram, I follow a lot of stunt actors and like martial artists and whatnot, and a lot of times they'll like post their reels or like behind the scenes footage of doing scenes together, and a lot of times I'll be listening to music or something while I'm doing this, so I'm watching all these videos muted, and it looks like total garbage. like you have these incredibly talented physical performers doing all these intricate movements, and it's all flawless, but without the sound, like without the hit sounds and just the air moving sounds, like without the sound layered on top of each other, it doesn't sell. Like it really just doesn't work. So like never discount the power of sound. It's massive.
Yeah. This is totally off topic. You can cut this if you want, but there's a web series that is done by Tim Heidecker and Greg Turkington called On Cinema, and it's a parody of like online film reviewers, basically, like a parody of us, essentially. I just watched a recent episode of that, and there's one character he's talking, and they're talking about the Oscars from a few years ago, and the one character goes, "Now, we all know that music is one of the most important elements in the filmmaking experience." And Greg Turkington goes, "No, they just throw that on last minute. It's not really important." Just finding any way to be contrarian that you can. It's just, it's good.
Nah, I don't think so. I think they just throw that on there.
And the other guy just is like, okay, well...
Well, I mean, that's almost like the equivalent to, like, interviewing somebody and just getting completely stonewalled.
Yeah, exactly.
Just getting like a yup, or I'd care not to talk about that today. It's like, okay then, go to commercial. Yep.
So yeah, just made me think of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was a fun one. Blowout. I guess I'm not kidding. I really ought to check that one out again. But what am I gonna do?
And I'll say that was the only Criterion I pulled off the shelf. I, restrained myself.
Okay. Well, I will. Funny enough, I'm about to follow suit. The only Criterion I pulled off of my shelf.
Oh.
Really? Yeah. I actually don't have an extensive Criterion collection. Not at all. Brad most certainly does. And I think you actually set aside like a section of your shelf specifically for that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we to get even further, I've separated my collection by boutique labels almost entirely now. I have an Arrow section, a Kino section. I'm really going. I'm deep in the weeds now. But yeah, it all started with the Criterion section. Yeah.
Okay, well, folks at home, if you're not aware, Brad not only does the Cinema Speak podcast, he also posts YouTube videos every now and again. Some really awesome unboxings and things of that nature, top 10 lists, all that fun stuff. But suggestion for potentially a future video, give us a tour of the collection.
I did have at least one person comment that and ask for they specifically requested the whole room. They wanted a full like studio tour.
Getting some 1 hour photo vibes from that.
yeah. We'll see. I mean, it's
post your address.
Yeah, it might be a little too personal. We'll see. I mean, We might get there someday, but I'm not quite ready. I gotta keep a few secrets hidden.
I wouldn't ask you to do that. In fact, I'm not interested in that. but I think it would be neat. Just, I mean, truth be told, not to get us completely off track, but this is actually what I'm pitching is essentially how Tales from the Shelf came about. Was that I realized, holy shit, I have a lot of movies. Holy shit, my buddy Brad has a lot of movies. Wouldn't it be fun to actually put those movies to use aside from occasionally watching them?
Yeah.
Because
I would have loved just the going the gears turning in your head when we first did a podcast together and you saw the Blu-rays behind me and you were probably just thinking one of us.
I mean, it was kind of like that, where it's just the webcam comes on for the first time. It's like, holy shit, he's got a lot of movies. Nerd! But no, that is how the concept came about. It was an idea I'd been sitting on for quite a while, but my normal podcasting partner, Kyle, he is a cinephile to the extreme, probably even more so than me. His tastes are considerably higher brow than mine. He's seen more French films, just put it that way. But he doesn't have a substantial physical media collection, and just I thought it would be fun to have the visual component to go along with things. So yeah, I would highly encourage you to maybe just give a tour similar to this style or something, but just purely you're an exhibition of your own collection and just curate a selection.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my next B is again my only criterion that I pulled off my shelf from my B's, and this would be Terry Gilliam's Brazil. This is a fantastic film. This is a movie that I continually come back to. It's from 1985, although as far as I understand it was released multiple times because there are multiple versions of this movie.
Oh god.
Yeah, Brett, we had a as the subject of discussion only a couple months ago, alternate cuts as a topic of discussion on this show, and Brad expressed he's not the biggest fan of there being multiple versions of a film being out there because it makes it that much more difficult to determine which film is the optimal version or which version of it needs a space on your shelf, things of that nature. But this is referred to as the director-approved 2-disc Blu-ray, which is kind of a big deal when you're dealing with Terry Gilliam because he is a infamously persnickety individual. And the original theatrical release of this movie was horribly botched because the studio forced a different conclusion to the story, one that was considerably more upbeat and very, very different from his intended vision of the film. I believe the runtime was also significantly cut as well. But the restored version of the movie is the only version I've actually seen, honestly. So I have. It's not like Blade Runner where I've seen the original theatrical release with the Harrison Ford narration. The very bored, very tired Harrison Ford telling you the plot of the entire story. So yeah, she was beautiful. And she came into my apartment when I was enhancing photos. Took 20 minutes just to get the right pixel.
I don't think I've ever seen that version. I got to watch that version.
Most people
sometime.
haven't because it's not worth your time. It is a clear-cut example of just an inferior iteration of a film. That doesn't happen very often, honestly, where there's a clear cut, just no, you don't need to watch that. But that version, it's just as far as I understand, it's just not as good. Get that unicorn back in there. But Brazil is fantastic though, the restored version of it with the intended ending and the intended runtime in particular. I've always said that anybody who's ever worked in an office probably deserves to treat themselves to this film because a lot of the subject matter and the angle at which it approaches said subject matter, it's cutting. It's a little too close to home on occasion. Some of the discussions of bureaucracy and just the messes that can come about when components of a greater organism cease to perform optimally. Like the messes that can come about as a result of that. It's one of those things like I always like to keep in the back of my mind. That's like it's always really cool when you get like a package in the mail, and it just arrives on your doorstep and you open it and you're like, oh, that was awesome. It's always an interesting exercise to like take a second to think about how that actually got to your doorstep, like how many different hands had to touch that, how many different systems that had to be processed through, and like the opening of this movie really demonstrates that all it takes is just like one little fuck up in that very long series of events to just completely ruin everything. There's something referenced in the opening scene of this movie called the Tuttle Bottle. I actually used that phrase in the office a while back, and I heard a snicker in the neighboring cubicle because they knew exactly what I was talking about. Because basically, it's like a bunch of wanted posters essentially are being printed out by this machine, and a fly falls into the machine, and it causes the name, I think, Tuttle to be changed to Buttle on exactly one of like the wanted posters, and it results in a person being wrongfully imprisoned and presumably executed just because of literally just a typo. It's like, man, like these gargantuan systems in place, it really doesn't take much to knock them off kilter. But this movie, just like head to toe, like everything about it is so well thought out. Like the humor's there, the drama's there, the performances are there. The Terry Gilliam's signature cluttered production design is like probably at its best here, honestly. I saw this movie in high school, and it's one that I come back to like just every couple of years, just because I feel like I get something out of it every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only seen it the one time. Now, what's the runtime on this bad boy here?
Give me 1 second. Let me check that out. 142 minutes. So it's
well, that's why I've only seen it the one time.
It's not short.
No, I did like it a lot. I would like to go back and revisit it. Like that whole Tuttle Bottle thing. I don't remember. It's just so sad when you just like think like I've watched this movie. I spent an hour and 142 minutes or whatever you said sitting in front of this movie. And I remember nothing from it. Nothing.
Well, it is like clutter is the word that comes to mind when I think of like Terry Gilliam's aesthetic sensibilities. Like a lot of his scenes, a lot of his production design is very messy. Like the frame is just crammed full of shit. And usually it is literally just like stuff. Like it doesn't look clean. It doesn't look organized. Kyle and I even talked about a movie of his called The Fisher King. It's on the surface, like it seems like a very quaint, like very simple human story, but even within those confines, like those narrative confines, he still found ways to like insert some very bizarre camera angles and like some very unique lensing, and like Robin Williams' character in that, like his dwelling in that, it's like, yeah, this was made by the same guy. Like the whole movie doesn't feel consistent with like something like Brazil or something, or the Brothers Grimm or what have you, but like from time to time it's like you get these reminders. It's like, oh yeah, there he is, there's Terry. But yeah, Brazil, I would highly recommend going back to it. There's a lot to it. Like it's a very good candidate for analysis. Like it is a movie you kind of have to pay attention to, but even if you aren't, it has like a sarcastic sense of humor about it, like a very incredibly dry sense of humor about it that is a lot of fun, and the cast as well is just full of lovely faces that you'll recognize and you'll have a lot of fun with. Bob Hoskins has a very small role in it, but a very memorable one, and Robert De Niro, of all people, also has an incredibly small role in it, but a memorable one as well. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed Brazil. There's a reason why it's on my shelf, and like I said, I don't have that many criterion, so it's significant that I would go out of my way to pick this one up.
Yeah, I don't want to toot my own horn, but when you said like you had a criterion and you're like, I don't have many criterions, but I'm pulling out a B criterion here, I was kind of thinking, I was like, all right, which criterion is it? And I had narrowed it down. I was like, if you only got a handful of criterions, what is it? What's the B criterion that's the must own? And I would have said either Brazil or Being John Malkovich. I was like, he's going to pull out one of those. And, I I picked two choices and one of them was right. So not to toot my own horn or anything.
Well, if I was running the Criterion Corporation, I would gain the rights to Bloodsport and add that to the collection. I'd put that shit out on 4K. Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport from the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, save that for Kino. Aren't they putting out, what is it, Hard Target or something?
Ard Target, yeah. Yeah. I was curious about that. I had been following the development of that disc for a minute, and unfortunately, it does not include the work print cut. There's a talking about alternate cuts again, Brad. This is an inescapable theme when you're talking to me. Unfortunately, there was a longer cut of that I don't know if it's a superior cut of the film, but it's something that has been rumored and talked about for a long time. Very similar in the same vein as like Cobra or the some early iterations of the producer's cut of Halloween 6. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But in this case, it is a 4K disc. It'll probably turn out looking great. But in terms of features, it does not include the extended work print cut. However, I think it does have a commentary from this guy that I follow on Instagram, Big Mike Leader. That he's I think he's British, but he's acted in a wide array of Chinese and Hong Kong productions. He's usually just like a guy that's there to get kicked and fall down. Sometimes he's just there for dialogue. I think he's like a liaison between like Western producers or casting directors and Chinese productions.
Okay.
But he's deeply embedded in the Chinese film industry and has been for decades. And I think he's supplying a commentary for that one. So that was interesting to see pop up.
Now I got to ask you though, no work print cut equals no sale?
For me personally, I'm good.
I don't know, man. Kino's 4Ks have been looking pretty damn good. You might be missing out on something here, even if it doesn't have that cut.
Well, similar to your conundrum with Citizen Kane, we reviewed our Target on Catching Up on Cinema not that long ago. So
I think I remember.
So
that,
it's fairly fresh in my brain, and I do already have it on the Blu-ray, so it's not a priority for me personally.
Okay, Kino sale $14.99. Huh?
That's still a maybe. Like
right.
our Target is not a personal favorite for me personally, both in terms of like John Woo and Jean-Claude Van Damme. I think they both have better offerings elsewhere in their filmographies, but that is a fun watch. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll give you that. If owning it already on Blu-ray, it makes the upgrade a little harder. It's a tougher swallow.
Yeah, you knock that down to $10 or something, then no questions asked, just like shut up and take my money.
I mean, let me tell you, some of these early Black Friday deals that Best Buy's having on some of these 4Ks, we're in trouble. We are eating banquet frozen dinners for the next 3 months. Let me tell you that much.
Oh shit. Well, you're going to be living off of Velveeta and just tap water through the end of the year, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was great timing. I went to the store, and usually the frozen dinners that are $1.69 were 2 for $3. Stock up on enough of those, and you got enough money to buy some 4Ks.
Yeah, I mean, you got to stock up for winter, basically, or stock up for the Blu-ray sale, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Way to get out in front of that, Brad.
Yep.
Anyway, that's enough out of me about Brazil. How about you, Brad? What you got next?
All right. Well, let's pull this one out. I mean, this disc ain't nothing special. This is just what is this? This is Universal. This is just the Universal disc. It's an old disc. We're talking early days of Blu-ray. So we don't have any Kino, Criterion. I don't have any of that stamp. But I think this movie is worth talking about, and that is it's a Coen Brothers film, and I would dare say it might be their most underrated film. It is Burn After Reading, which I have a real soft spot for this movie. I think this movie is very funny. First of all, I love the cast. I think Brad Pitt, I think, is one of his best performances. I think he's amazing. John Malkovich is awesome in it. Frances McDormand, George Clooney, Tilda Swinton, awesome cast. And it's a film that I just kind of keep coming back to. I love the mix of these like stupid characters with the overly, like, intentionally so, like, serious direction from the Coen brothers. Like, a lot of their direction is playing it like it's a straight up spy movie, like the world is at stake, and mixing that seriousness with these like just dumb, stupid, goofy characters. I think it makes for like a really interesting intentional clash of ideas and style and content that really works, and I think it's very watchable, very quotable. I have a real good time with this one, and a lot of people don't put it up there as one of the Coen's best. I don't know if I'd say it's like up there as like they're certainly not their best, but I'd probably put it in my top 5 for them, certainly in terms of watchability. And it's a little bit of an anomaly, I find, in their filmography. Like, I don't think they've done a modern day film since this one. They've been kind of on the period piece kick lately. So this one, it definitely stands out. Doesn't stand out quite as much as what's the one with Catherine Zeta-Jones, Intolerable Cruelty.
Yeah.
That one, more so just like the marketing and the poster, I guess. But that one feels like the Coen brothers directed that? What the hell? But yeah, I really like Burn After Reading. Again, look at this. This has got the whole, we got the, how to use Blu-ray manual in here.
Yep. I was about to ask
BD
about
Live.
that.
We got BD Live right here.
I was about to ask about that.
What a joke.
Yeah, Universal...
Collect your own movie clips. Get out of here with this crap.
Yeah, Universal has really ratty packaging on their older discs, and they've always had some of the worst menu design when you actually put the disc into the machine. Like, I don't think they've changed it since the format began.
Yeah,
it's always stuck out like a sore thumb. Like, fortunately, the actual quality, like the visual fidelity of their disc, is generally very, very good. But yeah, their packaging and their menu design departments, it's like they just, they went on Fiverr or something and called it good.
I gotta say though, one thing with Universal that I probably think about this, if I'm being honest, I would say I think about this at least twice a day on average, like every day for my entire life. It's I think it was the DVD era. Universal would have a promo for like their DVDs. I think it was specifically DVDs, and so like it was like The Mummy Returns, Jurassic Park 3, and I certainly both of those. I owned both of those, and I watched them a lot when I was younger. And there was like it was a promo for Universal movies on Blu-ray, and there was a piece of music that has been literally stuck in my head for my entire life ever since. Like I literally think about that music, I would say at least twice a day. Like literally today I was just walking around and just thinking in my head, dun 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 dun. I don't know if it's from something else, but I always associate it with that opening Universal promo. I mean, it's good, man. Like it's a banger. I love it.
Okay, well you've set me on a journey here, because now it's my mission to try to scour the internet to find this long lost Universal promo music, because I'd very much like to confirm if I'm remembering it correctly, because I think I know exactly like the trailers that you're talking about. Like it's just showing off the Universal catalog and like now on DVD basically. Yeah. But I have an idea of what the music sounded like, but now it's my mission to either like go through my movie library and see if I can find a Universal disc that might still have it, or just like see if I can look it up on the YouTubes or something. So I'll get it to you if I find it, Brad.
Well, I'm just looking. I just typed in Universal DVD promo on YouTube, and I'm not actually gonna look into it and see if this is right, but it looks like credited is John Pratt. It says composed of music by John Pratt, who is not a name familiar with me, but if this is if this is what I'm thinking of, John Pratt made one of the greatest bangers of all time. So.
Okay, well, I'll have to give that a listen when we're done.
It's good, man. It's good.
But yeah, the Coen brothers are probably one of the candidates. There's I could probably count on at least one hand, easily both hands and both feet, the number of directors who I owe it to myself to better familiarize myself with their filmographies. But the Coen brothers are probably top 3 of priorities for me personally, because I know them by reputation. I know them by stylistic sensibilities. I generally know when I'm watching one of their products, but truth be told, I actually haven't seen that many of their films. I have liked pretty much all of the films of theirs I've seen, minus The Lady Killers. That movie was fine. It wasn't bad. It wasn't awful or anything. It was just clearly not of the same caliber. It happens. So you do something for several decades, and yeah, you will have a little bump in the road at some point. But Burn After Reading is one that I have seen. My ex was really, really big on that one, and she ended up presenting it to me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you're absolutely right. The sheer magnitude of the humor that comes from this shot as if it's a legit spy thriller, but cast full of dunces. The humor that comes out of the situations and the power of the filmmaking on display. It's all highly coordinated. In fact, as far as I understand, that's how a Coen Brothers set is conducted. They're very precise. In particular with their writing. They're very big on every inflection in the script is meant to be shot. It's we're not here to improvise. We're not here to bebop and scat. We're here to read what's on the fucking page, Brad. It's
Yeah, it's the classic thing where they say if you go up to each of the Coen brothers separately and you ask them a question, you'll always get the exact same answer.
Yeah, no, I've heard that they run a very tight ship with all their productions, but that's part of what's interesting is that so many of their movies end up being so very, very funny, and have such a unique voice, at least in the Hollywood landscape, where it's their sensibilities and their approach to humor, the way it's delivered, it's not oftentimes making a big show out of the humor. It's I don't entirely know why that was funny, but good God, that was hilarious. Fargo for me is endlessly rewatchable, and also a very, very funny movie with some intense moments here and there. But Burn After Reading was mostly just hilarious.
Yeah,
and so many of the payoffs with some of the characters, in particular George Clooney's characters, just I don't think anybody could have seen that coming, but I'm really glad it's in the movie.
Yeah, and you got to respect the Coen brothers too, because I'm sure this wasn't intentional, but right after Fargo, they do The Big Lebowski. Right after No Country for Old Men, they do Burn After Reading. The fact that they're have these highly acclaimed, celebrated, Fargo is comedic, but I would say they're more I would say they're more dramatic films. Those are their high caliber, Oscar-worthy films, and for them to immediately go into a comedy after both of those, I love that. It's they're not going to try and follow up, a Fargo with another Fargo. They go do they do whatever they want. I love it.
Yeah, and more power to them, because, like I said, they very seldom seem to miss, and they have an extensive body of work. Brad, not to put you on the spot, but if you had to pick a favorite Coen Brothers movie, or a top 2 or 3, what do you think you'd go with?
I would probably say Fargo is my favorite. I would put No Country for Old Men pretty close behind it, though. I really do love No Country for Old Men. And that one is underrated in its humor as well. There's some of my I can think of some moments, specifically when I believe it's Josh Brolin walks into the department store, and I think he's covered in blood, and he's I need some clothes, and he asks the guy you ever see a guy come in here looking like me? And the guy just goes like, no, sir, it's unusual. Like the delivery of that, like how like straight faced he says, like that's classic Coen Brett. It's so funny. It's great.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think of when I think of their particular brand of humor, where it's just like it doesn't necessarily work without the proper context, but good God, it works. But Kyle is a huge fan of No Country for Old Men, such that he's probably mad at me for not having seen it more than once, and having only seen it probably around the time it first came out. So I honestly don't remember it that well. So that's God damn it, Brad, you're racking up a huge list of things I really ought to go run out and give a rewatch. Yeah, Fargo's very high on my list personally as well. Again, like full disclosure, not a super fan, don't have the most extensive familiarity with their filmography, but A Serious Man is also like neck and neck with that one. I really enjoy that movie.
They got so many bangers.
They do.
Like they're like John Pratt. They're straight bangers. I mean, yeah, like I'm thinking, yeah, Serious Man, that's definitely up there. Inside Llewyn Davis, that's a great one. I mean, the more I think about it, it's like, damn, how would I narrow down my top 5? Maybe Burn After Reading wouldn't make my top 5. Like they got a lot of good shit.
They absolutely do. And like I said, in terms of like directors that I really owe it to myself to take a deep dive on someday, they're very near, if not at the top of my list personally. So yeah, I'll definitely have to work on that. In particular, No Country for Old Men is due for a rewatch, but there's tons of classics from them that I haven't seen.
Get on it, bud.
I know. Get into it. But first, I got to get through that pillowcase full of shit.
Yeah, you got to watch The Meg first.
I got to watch The Meg and Black Mask 2, City of Masks. And another stakeout. They didn't have the first stakeout, so I only got another stakeout.
I mean, hey, that's a good title though. It's not bad. I mean, now let me ask you: if you had the first stakeout, would you separate them? Would you put another stakeout under A?
I would break your damn heart, Brad, and I would put them side by side.
Oh my god! I think I'm gonna be sick.
But let me reassure you and say that I have no intention of purchasing the first stakeout.
Yeah. So here's another question. Yeah, so now you've only got another stakeout. Where are you putting another stakeout?
Well, it's going under A because
you're fucked.
Yeah, my collection is fucking Thunderdome. I know.
Stick to your guns and put it under S at least. At least that I can appreciate your standing your ground.
There are no rules, Brad. Not in my house.
I can just imagine you buying stakeout and walking over to your shelf and grabbing another stakeout from A and like, oh, they got to move it over to S now.
Well, see, if I had you in here, Brad, I'd go take a shit or something, and I'd come out and you'd be like monkeying around with the placement. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, how dare you reorganize my shelf and put it in its proper order? Put it in logical order.
Oh, I'd have fun with that. Oh, that'd be a blast.
Well, I feel like the moment you set foot in here, you'd be like blinking out a sink and like bordering on a stroke or some shit. You'd be having an aneurysm.
I need a couple hours. Go do something. I'd
have to make sure to have a brown paper bag on hand at the very least. It's just like, Brad, just in case, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just like Dr. Alan Grant. Put your head between your knees. Make fists with your toes. So what do I got next? Well, it wouldn't be a Tales from the Shelf if I didn't cheat like a motherfucker, because it is my show, and I'm free to break the non-existent rules as I see fit. So I have here 4 different movies from the same director that all begin with the letter B. Most of which are important to me, not all of them, but most of them. So I have... I'm so sorry, Brad. I'm going to break your damn heart again. So I have the ugliest Batman case you've ever seen.
Ah, yes, yes.
The 4-film favorites Batman collection from Warner Brothers. This includes basically the Tim Burton and the Joel Schumacher era of the film franchise. So, of course, I'm talking about Tim Burton, who directed Batman 89 and Batman Returns, both of which are some of my very, very favorite superhero films. Batman Returns, in particular, I've said it numerous times on the show, is probably my favorite superhero / Batman movie ever. It means a lot to me personally for whatever reason. In addition to that, though, I also have Beetlejuice on 4K, which I will confirm looks absolutely fantastic on the format. It's another Warner Brothers disc. And finally, I have an Anchor Bay disc of Big Eyes, which is a oft-forgotten Tim Burton film that was not very well marketed nor very well publicized, such that unless you confirm it right now, Brad, I don't think I know another human being on the planet that's seen this movie.
Well, you can count me in because I have seen Big Eyes.
Okay. What was the verdict? How'd you feel about it?
Don't remember anything from it.
I don't blame you. It is kind of that sort of movie. It feels like an odd passion project of sorts from Tim Burton, because just from a subject matter standpoint, it's like, hang on, what now? Like, you want to talk about what for 2.5 hours? But you have Christoph Waltz and Amy Adams, directed by Tim Burton, a film about art, about painting in particular. And the nature of public personas and fame. I feel like it fits very handsomely into his filmography. It's not one of his stronger efforts, but thematically, it's actually highly consistent with a lot of the themes that he seems to be obsessed with his filmography. I've always stressed that a lot of his stories are about artists to some degree, and a lot of them are about outcasts or people who don't necessarily fit in or have an aspect of themselves that draws a little bit too much attention to them and therefore causes them to be ostracized or exploited, usually is the case. Like Edward Scissorhands in particular is an example of an artist being exploited by the public and like everybody kind of mutually suffering as a result of it. But yeah, Big Eyes I would not highly recommend it to anyone. But it was a movie that I was really glad I sought out. Just because for the most part, I really like Tim Burton. And when I heard about the subject matter, I was like, that doesn't sound good. Not going to lie. That sounds dreadfully boring, if I'm being perfectly honest. But because it was directed by him and because it's consistent with a lot of the themes he tends to explore, I thought he could do something with it. He did, but it just doesn't really coalesce into anything truly exceptional. Same cannot be said for these films, though. Batman and Batman Returns and Beetlejuice, all of them are absolutely fantastic movies. Absolutely gorgeous from head to toe. Feature some of Danny Elfman's earlier and like more effortful film scores. He has a couple of stints in his career where he maybe phoned it in just a little bit. But in the late 80s, that was most certainly not the case, especially since, as far as I was told by my parents, a lot of noise was made about him being assigned to some of the projects he was, where it's like the Oingo Boingo guy, conducting an orchestra for big budget Hollywood movies. That doesn't add up. And then you get the end result of, say, Batman 89. It's like, okay, I'll shut the fuck up. It's like I will eat crow on that one because he is capable of absolutely phenomenal things. But yeah, Brad, anything to say about any of these in particular?
I do enjoy Tim Burton as well. I think he's definitely fallen off in later years. I mean, same can be said for Danny Elfman. I mean, you listen to some of this guy's scores nowadays, and you're like, man, this guy used to be operating at the level of John Pratt, and look at him now. But no, I do love his first two Batman movies, Beetlejuice. I mean, really, his early filmography. I mean, this guy was just banger after banger, and lately it's just you're wondering where'd he go? Where did good old Timmy go?
It's funny because I forget the occasion precisely, but last time I glanced at Tim Burton's filmography, it was when we talked about Sweeney Todd just last month for Kyle's Killer October, which was a horror musical themed. When we started talking about that, I made it a point to do a frontwards and backwards examination of all the filmmakers we were talking about, because it's a fun exercise to look at what preceded and what followed a work. Where does this film fit in this person's body of work? And I was kind of taken aback by the fact that I too often think of Tim Burton as having like had a cutoff date or like a falling off point. But then when I look at his filmography really closely, it's like I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think he just misses. Like his batting average isn't astounding, but I don't think he's truly completely fallen off. He just has these spells where it's just like, oh, that didn't work out, and then he usually kind of returns to form at some point. Because like the first movie that I can point to on his filmography that is truly a miss is Planet of the Apes in 2001. So that's, a decade and a half before he had his first swing and a miss. Big Fish, I don't know if it cleaned up at the box office, but that was a critically well-regarded film that directly followed Planet of the Apes. And then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, not a very good movie. So it's like miss, hit, miss. Corpse Bride, I don't know that many people saw that one. Sweeney Todd, as far as I understand, was not marketed well. They tried to hide the fact that it was a musical, but critically, it's held up for the most part. Alice in Wonderland made all the money. It kind of sucks, so that's another miss. So it's like he kind of just has like a rhythm of just kind of like
I think your theory falls apart in the last decade. I think everything after Alice in Wonderland. I mean, I haven't seen Frankenweenie. I mean, Big Eyes was okay. I mean, again, none of these are like stankers.
Yeah,
but, like they're compared to his usual output. Like his last decade has been pretty bad, I would say.
Well, I mean, if you compare it to his first decade, I wouldn't fight you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to see Dark Shadows. I've heard it's better than you might think. Like it didn't look good at all when it was being advertised, but like I've heard mostly good things, honestly. And the cast is a, I don't know, it's a breath of fresh air for me. Like that came out in a time period when Michelle Pfeiffer wasn't in that many things. And it's like, oh, she's back. I'm game.
Yeah, it's one I got to revisit that one. I saw it in theaters, and that's been it. I wasn't like super crazy about it, I don't think, but people were. There was a little bit of a Dark Shadows pile-on going on, I feel like. So maybe I might have been guilty of joining the angry mob.
Well, again, also just from a conceptual standpoint, it's not very appealing. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's an adaptation of a soap opera from like the 60s. Like it's like one of those things that's like you can tell this probably meant something to him personally, but beyond that, it's like, the kids aren't really going to be rushing out to the theater to see Dark Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, the interesting thing, this will be interesting, like for you to watch for the first time, me revisit Dark Shadows in preparation for Rob Zombie's The Munsters.
I mean, that would be an interesting comparison, honestly.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to expect from that, by the way.
That is honestly maybe not even necessarily the movie, but the trailer for the upcoming Munsters movie with Rob Zombie might be my most anticipated piece of content in the next year or so. Because I truly want to know is it going to be a comedy? How much is Rob Zombie going to rein in his normal style, or is it? I mean, I'm very, very interested.
Yeah, like I said, I have no idea what to expect from that because I actually did grow up kind of watching the Munsters. I have some familiarity with it thanks to Nick at Night. And when I think of the Munsters, I absolutely don't think of Rob Zombie's his oeuvre, his aesthetic in the film world, because he tends to go for that hellbilly thing. He seems to not be capable of making things without the hellbilly thing. But yeah, I presume the Munsters will be driving around town in the back of their Dracula at some point in the film.
Yeah. I mean, going back to Dark Shadows, I got to say, the one real disappointing element is, you got a movie where Johnny Depp is a vampire, and there's no Hollywood vampires on the soundtrack. Yeah. Come on, get real.
I mean,
let's go.
At least use it for the trailer or something,
right?
Know?
I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe I guess maybe it wasn't. I'm making a gag. I'm making a goof. Maybe it was on the soundtrack. I don't know.
Well, that is a movie though that of Tim Burton's in particular that I owe it to myself to check out because I have heard pretty good things. But Big Fish is honestly the biggest element of his filmography that I haven't seen. I've
yeah,
been
that's
told
a real good one.
I've been told by a lot of people that's like, Trevor, you really got to see that one because it's actually really, really good. But
You're gonna bawl your eyes out.
I know. I know a little bit about the subject matter. I'm like, God damn it! Do I really want to watch that? It's like, yeah, I do. But I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brad, I think maybe you're absolutely right. I think Tim Burton may be in a rut. Like, here's hoping he can pull himself out of it, though, because God damn it, he gave us some really amazing shit. And I really hope he has at least one more good one left in him.
Stick a fork in him. He's done. He's isn't his next thing a Netflix show for about the Addams Family?
I don't know, but
it's over. It's over.
I'm trying not to acknowledge that, but you're probably right. I mean, for fuck's sake, the guy did start in 1985. That is a lot of career. So there's no shame in like calling it good at this point. But man, I miss prime Burton. Like he gave us like a good solid decade and a half of just awesomeness. And I'd like to get some more of that, because like we're missing some weird shit in like the Hollywood blockbuster scene, man. We get decent blockbusters these days, but we need like weirdos like him in the director's seat to give us stuff that's like truly memorable and special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like you can see like we're reaching a point where there's filmmakers coming up who are influenced by his early stuff, and so, but I mean, they don't have obviously, which I guess is good that they're not just ripping him off 100%, but you can see influence of him, and then he's over here doing a Wednesday Addams Netflix series.
That hurts,
like,
man.
His upcoming, like, if you look at his IMDb, he's got 2 projects. One is Wednesday, which comes out next year, and the other is in development Beetlejuice 2. That's
been in development since 1985.
I know, that's where he's at right now. This is where he's at.
That hurts, Brad.
If Michael Keaton wasn't having a good career right now, I would say they'd be like, they're both. Michael Keaton is probably the one now who's like, I don't know if I want to go. Tim Burton's probably like, please, Michael, please, I need something.
Yeah, I mean the Addams Family thing is kind of depressing too, because it's like a lot of people wrongfully associate Tim Burton with those 90s films. It's like he didn't make those. That was In fact, that wasn't Barry Sonnenfeld. That was the one who I get mixed up with Barry Sonnenfeld. I get their names mixed up because they're kind of similar. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
is it? I don't know. It's not Barry. Is it Barry Levinson? Did he do those?
It's Levinson or Sonnenfeld, because for some reason I get the two of them mixed up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see why.
Yeah.
I think it is Sonnenfeld.
Okay, yeah. That I kind of thought so, but yeah, he did the Addams Family films, not Tim Burton. But because of the aesthetic similarities, a lot of people just kind of assumed that Tim Burton made those. It's like, oh, so now we've come full circle. So now he's being assigned to the thing that people wrongfully attached to his name.
I mean, yeah, he's not even getting to direct the theatrical Addams Family movies. He's doing the Netflix, like, this. He's done. It's over. He's done. He should have followed Quentin Tarantino's page and quit after 10. He's done.
I mean, it probably would have worked out for the best, but
yeah.
Anyway, that's enough Burton bashing. What you got next, Brad?
All right. Well, here's an interesting one. Maybe I've talked about this on a past Tales from the Shelf. I don't know, but whatever. If I don't remember, nobody else is gonna remember probably. So, now this one is interesting because getting back into collection organization, does this movie start with a B? Like, is this breaking the basic rules of our episode? We're going to have to find out. We'll see what you think. Could go either way. I'm talking Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, is it Dracula or is it Bram Stoker's Dracula? Because I consider it Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's what's on the spine. It's on the cover. But you go on IMDb, and it is just credited as Dracula.
Really?
So,
I was not aware of that.
I just checked it out because I was like, I know somewhere it is simply Dracula, and it is Dracula on IMDb. So I don't know. I have it under B. You know, the classic rule, if it's on the spine, that's where it goes in line. So you got to follow. You got to stick to your principles. But yeah, I really enjoy this film a lot. Speaking of, I also have an empty bottle of Francis Ford Coppola's wine sitting up here. You can actually kind of see it, right?
Yeah.
There
You go.
That's Frankie's wine. I love the story of Dracula. This might be my favorite version of it. I love the makeup, the effects. I mean, the cast has got some highs. You got your Gary Oldmans, you got your Anthony Hopkins, but you also got your lows with Winona and Keanu. Not super well cast, but hey, now everybody loves Keanu, so everybody's gonna go back to this and say, hey, we love Keanu, even when he's not good. We love him. He's a great guy. You know, and it's a really fun movie. The slipcover is amazing. It's got that nice texture. I specifically had to go to Walmart to get this with a slip. I think I have talked about this before. I'm pretty sure I told you about this story where I was in Best Buy and none of them had a slipcover. They were all just sitting on the shelf like this. And I said, I got to get a slip. This just came out. Why is there no slip? And I go on Blu-ray.com. I go in the forums. And people are freaking out. Why is there no slip on this at Best Buy? Where's the slip? And somebody comments, there's slips at Walmart. Walmart has it with slips. And so, mad dash, get over to Walmart. And woo. So I did get this with the slip. And yeah, I like it as adapting Dracula and really, you know, amping up the horror elements. Like it does have some horrific stuff in there. And I think it's, you know, it's a sexy film. It's gory. It's just it's a blast. It's a good time. Frankie's best film of the 90s. Probably his last good film. I don't even know what he's done since. Just stick to wine, Frankie.
Yeah, I seem to remember him having some stinkers like in the late 2000s or something that I think my brother may have sent me some clips of, but it's funny you bring that one up because I actually almost pulled that one out as well. I own the exact same disc, although I don't have an awesome story to go with it as well.
Should have gone to Walmart.
That's where you get the war stories on the Blu-ray hunts. But yeah, I almost pulled that one off as well. I too think of it as Bram Stoker's Dracula because that's how it was always marketed. That's the title of the movie. I don't recall if that plays actually in the film. Like I think that I don't remember if Bram Stoker's name appears in the opening title of the film with the stone tablet or whatever that says Dracula. Mm-hmm. But anyway, in terms of like the way the movie was marketed, it was always Bram Stoker's Dracula. So that's how I think of it. I would classify that as a B, but the timing of this is very fitting because, again, not too long ago, Brad and I were talking about alternate cuts of films, and I did get around to watching Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, which was a complete waste of my motherfucking time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, The Godfather 3 is not that great of a film to begin with, and the advertisement, like the concept of a recut of the film was that it's like this is going to be a better version of the same product, and just to spoil it, essentially all it is they rearrange the opening, they change the ending completely to some extent, and the runtime is cut down by a significant portion. So if you're looking for a faster watch, it is an alternative. Like if you just want to watch the Godfather trilogy and you want to be quick about it, it is useful for that. But in terms of like artistic merit, it really has almost nothing going for it. Like it felt like a waste of my time, honestly. I was just like, what was the point of that? Same cannot be said for the Rocky IV director's cut, which I saw in the theater very recently. That is the differences of that version. While not all of them, like not all of the changes are worthwhile or significant, they're apparent, such that it's like it's like, okay, this is a different cut of the movie. Whereas the other one, it's just like, this is basically just a faster Godfather 3 with a different opening and a different ending. It's like, the fuck. And then there's some weird continuity issues too, where like they rearranged a scene, I noticed, and then basically the Michael Corleone character was talking to both of his kids, and then they separated that scene into two different scenes split up by like 10 to 15 minutes of screen time, and we only get to see him talk to his kids individually. But then at the end of one of the conversations, you can see a disembodied hand walking into the frame carrying flowers, and it's like, oh, that's totally the same scene. They just forgot to cut out that little bit of the person walking into the frame. It's like, oh, well, why the fuck would you separate it? It's like it feels very lazy in that way. But anyway, Bram Stoker's Dracula is a truly beautiful film. Just again, if you discount like some of the acting performances, like Winona and Keanu do not display their best work here. Even with that, just to look at the damn thing and listen to it, like the score is also, like, I can't pronounce the person's name. It's Wojciech. I know I can see the person's name in my head, but I don't have the tools to pronounce it. But the score is phenomenal. That's a tune that's been used for many trailers, and just the audiovisual mastery at work is incredible. Like it's kind of like the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films, in that it's like an every trick in the book type production. Mm-hmm. Like watching the making of for that movie is awesome. Like it's so cool to see some of the stuff that they employed in that film. It's like so much of it is like almost like antiquated technology, but it comes across beautifully in the finished product.
I feel like at the time, I could be mistaken, but wasn't it didn't get a very warm reception when it came out? I feel like it was kind of got a little bit of a shit on. Maybe not too bad, but I feel like it's definitely over time more people have come around and come to appreciate it.
I suspect you're probably right, because I want to say the reception for it may have been somewhat lukewarm. The marketing train behind it was pretty big. I remember that much. I was very young when it came out, but I do remember the promotion for it. It was a big deal, but I don't know if it was all that well received at the time of release. But these days, I think it's a very well regarded film.
Yeah,
probably on the strength of a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. Honestly, like now that like we've had DVDs and Blu-rays and 4Ks for a long time, and supplemental materials like this are just like widely available. I think people are finding new ways to appreciate films where it's not just a good film to look at. It's like when you actually think about how they made the damn thing, that's what makes it a really awesome movie. Because like I said, from a performance standpoint, there are some okay performances. There are some astounding performances as well. Gary Oldman goes for it in this one. Mm-hmm. I'm not positive how I feel about Anthony Hopkins. Some of his line deliveries are kind of funny. But I think it's because he crafted a unique spin for the character of the Van Helsing character, where it's just like he's kind of just like flip about a lot of really hairy shit. There's just like really gnarly shit's going on. He's just like, no big deal. It's like, it's every Tuesday at my house.
Yeah.
But
another theory maybe why this might have gotten dumped on when it came out is it did come right after Godfather Part 3. So it just the Coppola pile-on. I mean, what can you do?
I could see that, because, yeah, Godfather 3, I think these days gets more of a pass than maybe it deserves, because I remember at the time when that movie came out, it was shat on. Like, people really didn't care much for that movie. And I feel like that it's softened a bit, like, these days, the public perception of it. But, yeah, I could see the runoff from that maybe poisoning this production a little bit. But these days, it's awesome. Like I think Kyle rewatched it pretty recently as well, and he's it's one of those like any time of the year kind of movies for him. It's just like, man, I want to see some of those cool images and some of those really awesome transitions again. Plus, the cast really is awesome. Like I said, there's a couple of stinkers in there, but like Bill Campbell doesn't really make much of an impression, but it's kind of the novelty factor of seeing the Rocketeer fight vampires is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then I think Richard E. Grant is in there as well.
Okay.
Who was not as much on my radar until Kyle had me watch the film With Noel and I. He had me watch that just out of the blue a long time ago, like a few years back, and we did end up reviewing it for Catching Up on Cinema at some point. But like ever since I watched that movie, now he's like very much on my radar, and it's like, man, that guy's really fucking good. like he elevates like everything he's involved in, and yeah, he plays one of the suitors in there, so he's like shoulder to shoulder with like Carrie Elwes and Bill Campbell in there. But yeah, Brad, you're just racking up this list of movies I need to rewatch because it's like it's staring at me. It's like,
yeah,
it's right over there.
Now I'm wanting to rewatch. I mean, bottom line, check out Bram Stoker's Dracula. Don't check out the new cut of The Godfather Part 3. Francis Ford Coppola, stick a fork in him. He's done. Stick to the Pinot Grigio, Frankie. You're done. No more of these cuts.
Cut
you off.
I mean, that's something to be worried about, Brad, is just this month, like maybe even this week, he has a new one coming out on 4K, The Outsiders.
Ah, that's right. Yeah.
So
I've never seen that.
We have Apocalypse Now, we have The Outsiders, we have The Godfather 3. Like,
this guy's hopped up on Pinot. Get real, Frankie.
What I'm hinting at here, Brad, is what happens if he gets froggy and he wants to take a hop at Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Like a new cut you're talking?
Yep.
I mean, I would check it out, but I would not be happy about it.
Yeah, no, I don't see a reason to meddle with that film. It's already so beautiful to look at. I don't think it would benefit from rejiggering any of the order of scenes or anything. Like it. Yeah. There's nothing to be done with it. And on top of that, I want to say that maybe the studio would be less willing to have a Dracula product meddled with, because it's kind of a big deal, and there's a lot of ownership rights and concerns of that nature. So I don't imagine that's a possibility, but seems like it's in his nature to want to George Lucas that shit.
Yeah, Frankie's grandkids are going to tell him to sit down and just, watch some Price is Right. Chill out, Granddad. You're not going to have you redo your Dracula film.
No, I sincerely hope he doesn't, because I still haven't rewatched Apocalypse Now to see what the quote final cut of it is like, but and I don't really have much interest to check out The Outsiders. I had to watch that shit for high school. The cat.
I never did that one in high school. I don't know why.
It may be like a regional thing. Who knows? But The Outsiders was on the curriculum. We did read it, and the movie has the novelty factor of having one of the most astounding casts of young dudes of its time. Like it's just this laundry list of big names that would become big in the years to come. But it's not a movie I'm especially thrilled to go back and rewatch, especially like a longer version with a new soundtrack, I think, because I think the original version like had his dad compose the score for it or something. But anyway, don't fuck with Dracula.
No.
Words to live by. Don't fuck with Dracula.
Stick to the wine, Frankie.
All right, Brad. Well, you want to go one more round, or you about tapped out?
Yeah, I can go one more round.
Okay. Well, let's see what we got here then. Gonna go out with me and talk about stacked cast. This is I think this is a universal. Yes, this is a universal disc. It has that swoosh across the back art for it, so that's telling. This is a movie that is I actually have a similar relationship to this film that I do to Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein.
Oh.
In that it makes me laugh when I'm not supposed to laugh. I love Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein for that. That movie just makes me laugh and laugh.
I've never seen that one. I gotta add that to the list.
You really ought to, Brad. You'll have fun with it. Trust me. Mm-hmm. So this is a Ron Howard film, Backdraft. Yeah. This was a really, really big deal when it came out in the early 90s. And the cast is just absolutely stacked. This movie, I remember distinctly, like the Entertainment Tonight, like behind the scenes segments, like detailing the pyrotechnics involved in the production, because one interesting thing about this movie is that it came out in a time period where CGI was not yet a standard element in film production. So all the fires had to really be in the room with the actors and with the stunt players and whatnot. So a lot of it looked serious and dangerous. And it was really thrilling. And plus, it was a huge production. Like, I don't remember all the marketing for this one, but I just remember like the word Backdraft is not one that you hear in daily speech very often. But as a kid, this was one of those things where it's like you hear the word Backdraft and you just kind of like gasp a little bit, like, "Oh, that's the movie with the fire! Oh shit!"
Yeah.
So for me, this was like one of those movies very similar to like Top Gun or Rocky IV, where it's like I kind of and Bloodsport and Kickboxer. I kind of heard whispers on the playground about what the movie actually was, and then I crafted in my own head what Backdraft was, because I mean just the word Backdraft. And then when I finally got around to seeing it, I was like, it was a movie, it was fun. But so it didn't really live up, but at the same time it's just like it's one of those gigantic 90s movies that just like it's special if you were there for the moment. But like I would imagine if you're a younger person and you come across this movie, it's probably just like, oh, what's the big fucking deal? It's like you had to have been there. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed this movie. It's the reason why I say it makes me laugh is it's not like a haha this is terrible kind of laugh. It's more like the style of drama and acting in this movie is so heightened. It's everything is so melodramatic and overblown, and it's all amplified by a young Hans Zimmer doing one of his early blockbuster scores. I mean, he'd been working in Hollywood for a minute by the time we got to this one. Like the Rain Man in particular, and Black Rain, which I did pull aside, but I haven't talked about. His scores for those were from the '80s, were some early like big Hollywood productions he was doing. But his score for Backdraft is phenomenal. Like
I think I've never seen the film, but I've heard the score. I mean, we're at John Pratt level with this one. We got some bangers.
Yeah, no, it really is an exceptional score, and it's I wouldn't say it's a complete turning point in his career, but it kind of was a signal to like the style that he'd embody, and then I think he really came to prominence by the time he got to Gladiator. Like he had some phenomenal scores leading up to that, but I don't think he was like a household name until around then, because I think he actually has gone on record saying Crimson Tide is one of his personal favorite scores.
Yeah.
And that was solidly like in the mid-90s. So he was doing really, really good work, but this movie I want to say is like an early example of him like adopting a more full-bodied orchestral sound that he would go on to utilize in the years to come. But astounding fire and pyrotechnics work. Kurt Russell giving another melodramatic performance, very similar to his work in Tombstone, another stacked cast film from the 90s. He is everything is over the top in Tombstone, and likewise everything is over the top in Backdraft. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed Backdraft. Robert De Niro has some good scenes in here. It's all kind of like all the characterization, all the themes are painted in the broadest of strokes, but it's like, if you're going to have Robert De Niro in there as like an arson investigator or something, it's like this is about as well as you could use him. And of course, this was the movie that probably taught me that Donald Sutherland is not to be trusted. Like I always thought of him as a scary guy, but I think this may have been the movie that planted that seed initially in my experience with film. Yeah, he's very creepy in it. But yeah, Brad, any thoughts on Backdraft?
Never seen Backdraft. I was, I guess, a little before my time. I mean, I gotta ask, like Ron Howard, good old Ronnie. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on the guy, but I mean, he's a bit of a jobber, if you ask me. Like he's who you call if you want to get the job done. You're not looking for anything too. We just want a regular movie. We just want a movie. We don't want anything too fancy. Just make a movie, all right? Just Ron.
We want a movie we can take Grandma to go see.
Exactly. You know how to turn on the camera, Ron. Don't do anything flashy. Just point the camera and shoot.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call him a complete jobber, but like as evidenced by his work on that Solo movie.
I mean, the ultimate job. That is a jobber job.
Yeah, no, he does have some evidence of just like a hired gun. Like in terms of like putting his creative fingerprints, his stamp on his productions, I don't think that's in him. Although like it almost like speaks to his personality. Because like very similar to the Munsters, I grew up watching Happy Days, and Richie Cunningham was not the star of the show. Like he may have been top billed, but like in terms of like stealing all the entertainment value and like stealing all the spotlight, he wasn't that kind of player. He was just kind of a guy, and he'd show up and he'd do the job and go home. And I think that's generally his reputation, is that he literally just shows up, does the job, and goes home. He doesn't like think much harder on it than that. So it's not like his pursuit of filmmaking is that of achieving high art. It's more just like, get it done. Don't piss anyone off. And don't lose anyone any money. And to that end, he's been very, very successful. But yeah, he does have a hired gun kind of quality to him, where it's like, I don't know why Brett Ratner is always the guy I go to when I think.
Oh, he's a jobber, all right.
Yeah, when I think of a jobber,
he's worse than a jobber. He's below a jobber.
He's a scab.
Calling him a jobber is like a compliment to him.
Yeah, I don't know why I always think of Brett Ratner when I think of just get it done kind of guys, but he's the one that always comes to mind for whatever reason. But Ron Howard, he has some decent ones in there. Like another movie that I really, Kyle's been bugging me for years now to see, Willow. I think that may have been his first movie, if not one of his very earliest.
It was early, yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of a hired gun type situation. It was yet one of those, that long list of could have been George Lucas movies that at the time George Lucas was too fucking lazy to go out and shoot it himself. So he's just like, hey, Ron, you want to make a movie? It's like, I don't know how to make a movie. It's like, well, it's real easy. Trust me, I did it. And it got done. And, you know, some people remember it. Most people don't. But Cinderella Man is also one that I'll defend to some extent. But I have a connection to that movie because that was a movie I was really hyped on. Like, it is melodramatic. It is somewhat fictionalized, the retelling of the James J. Braddock story. But at the time, like, I grew up with Boxing Hall of Fame books, like, on the shelf that I used to leaf through when I was a kid. So when that movie was announced, I was like, I know who James Braddock is. I know what to expect, and I know what will be wrong if they get it wrong in the movie. So I was very excited for that. Plus, I'm into boxing, so that was that movie was hard to fuck up for me anyway. But and then correct me if I'm wrong. Did he do Rush with Chris?
He did do Rush, yes.
I enjoyed that. Not very many people seem to have seen it, but I enjoyed that.
I mean, hey, listen. I'm not gonna say that Ron Howard is not. He's made some good films. I'll say he's made some great films. But I mean, if you've got an understanding of how to direct a movie, you know, you step up to bat enough times. Of course, every so often you're gonna get a couple hits. You know, you go to the casino, you play slots enough times. Eventually, you're gonna get some coins. I mean, it's statistically impossible to keep getting movies at this budget and this caliber and these casts and not at least have a few hits. But, I mean, come on now.
No, I would not defend his artistic merit. Like, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who, if you, like, lined up a series of films and asked someone to, like, someone who didn't know who directed any of them, like, could you pick out a Ron Howard movie? I seriously doubt anyone would be able to pass that test.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm goofing on. I'm just dunking on him. He's a great guy.
Hey man, don't goof on Richie Cunningham.
Yeah, I mean, poor guy. He's only got hundreds of millions of dollars to console himself with.
I mean, if you're gonna goof on anyone, goof on Clint. Like, at least he has it coming.
Oh, I mean, I've goofed on him enough. Trust me. Holy crap!
Yeah, Clint Howard he's a treasure. Like that.
Oh, Clint. Oh, okay. I thought you meant Clint Eastwood for some reason.
No, in recent days, yes, Brad has most certainly goofed on Clint Eastwood.
Okay, yeah, Clint Howard. Okay, all right. Yeah. Forgot that. I mean, I always forget about him. All right.
I mean, how dare you? It's Clint Howard, man. That guy like casting directors must love that guy. You're just like looking through headshots and you're just like, whoa, like, what happened here?
Yeah. I think he's like part of the Vinegar Syndrome family too, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
I think is he not in? Or unless I'm getting confused, I'm pretty sure he's in Ticks, which just came out on 4K.
Oh,
and he's in The Ice Cream Man, which is also another Vinegar Syndrome movie.
Yes.
So huge.
Yeah. No, Clint. I kid Clint Howard. He's, like I said, he's a treasure. Like, we always appreciate seeing Clint Howard, mostly just because of the fun game that comes with being able to say, "Oh, hey, Clint Howard," and having him. It's like the easiest game of Where's Waldo.
I like him because it's like he knows his place. Like, know your place, Ron. This guy thinks he's the next Spielberg. Get real.
Okay, Brad. Well, that's enough about Backdraft and the Howard family. What's your last?
We didn't even start talking about Bryce Dallas. All right.
I mean,
don't even need to go there.
Nepotism, the lady.
Her dad directs Solo, and now she's directing The Mandalorian.
Oh, she is? I didn't know that.
At least a couple episodes.
I mean, that's convenient, is all I'll say.
I know.
Oh, a little rich girl, huh? It's like...
Anyway. Is it to me now?
Yeah. You're up.
All right. I'll go with this one for my last one. Why not? Have you ever seen any films by the good old Harmony Korine, Trevor?
Exactly one.
Oh, and I would guess Spring Breakers. I would guess.
No.
Oh, interesting.
No. Although I have heard that that's a movie that if the marketing offended you, you're probably going to get more out of it.
Yeah.
I've heard it's not bad, actually. I've seen Gummo.
Okay, you have seen Gummo. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. What'd you think?
It's fucking weird, man.
Definitely one of the great spaghetti eating scenes of all time.
That fucking bathwater. That tub is just like a mess.
Yeah.
It makes you feel dirty just to think about.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for Harmony Korine.
Okay.
I don't necessarily love everything he does, but I'm very intrigued by most of his films. Yeah. One movie that I did really love was The Beach Bum, which is his most recent film. And, it did feel like with this one, Harmony Korine was leaning full on into just making a comedy, which felt kind of refreshing, but it still very much has his stylistic touches. The non-actors, very striking non-actors at times. And I think the visuals are great. I think the cast is pretty awesome as well. And genuinely, when I saw this in theaters, I don't think I've laughed at a film in theaters as hard as I did at that one since. I mean, I was losing it watching The Beach Bum in theater. I mean, it was like every joke, every gag felt like it was hitting for me. I think Harmony Korine is a very interesting filmmaker because he's like the antithesis of Ron Howard. Like you're not taking your grandma to see this guy's movies, all right? Let's be real. I mean, if you took your grandma to see Gummo, you might not be part of the family anymore. You're not coming to Thanksgiving this year, I don't think. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to highlight this because, I don't think I've ever talked about Harmony Korine on any of these. Most of his films aren't on Blu-ray. I think only this and Spring Breakers have gotten Blu-ray releases. I know Gummo, even the DVDs of these I might be out of print. Like some of these films are kind of hard to find. But yeah, there's Gummo, Mr. Lonely I've seen. I think the only film of his that I haven't seen is Trash Humpers, which I do need to check out. I've heard it's one of kind of just his most like nihilistic films. I feel like there's another film of his I'm forgetting in between there. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to help you with that one, but I know Harmony Korine by by reputation largely. Although, like I said, I have seen Gummo, so I kind of have an idea of what to expect. Like he's a person that's unafraid to explore some of the uglier and more unacknowledged aspects of like of the world,
but finding beauty in that ugliness.
And yes, putting the lens, like just fixating the lens on those things and not shying away from showing them to the audience. But yeah, he seems like a very interesting fella. I haven't really had much incentive. Like I haven't really found much reason to dive into his filmography, although it's interesting that you brought up The Beach Bum, because I do remember hearing really, really good things about it. And it piqued my curiosity, such that I don't know that I would dig through his entire filmography, but that's one that, I don't know, now that you've signed off on it as well, and to say that you laughed that hard in the theater, it's like, maybe I should prioritize that one.
The whole sequence with Martin Lawrence is amazing. It is so funny. I was laughing to the point where it's like no sounds were coming out anymore. It was just like it was amazing.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out, or at least try to keep in mind that it's like, don't ignore The Beach Bum. It's worth your time.
Yeah, definitely check it out. If you're a Martin Lawrence fan, I mean, it's good.
Martin Lawrence, man, when he's on, he's pretty fucking awesome. Like he I know he's had some personal issues here and there, but like there are times when it's like, man, that was pretty fucking awesome. like I don't know, maybe they coaxed it out of him for the production or something, but it always makes me happy to see him put out good work, because he's done some awesome stuff in his day.
Yeah, I would assume a lot of in The Beach Bum, a lot of it is kind of just improvised and because a lot of it just feels kind of rambling, and they're just having these conversations, and it feels very natural and unscripted. So just kind of letting him and Matthew McConaughey just riff with each other while they're eating food and smoking pot in the movie. I mean, it's a good time.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out. Can't speak for the rest of Harmony Korine's filmography, but that one I have pretty much across the board heard nothing but good about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta watch Gummo again. I gotta show the girlfriend Gummo sometime.
You sound like my dad. I think at one point he took my mom on a movie date to go see Eraserhead. Like it was like they very seldom had date nights at that point in their relationship. It was like, let's go see Eraserhead. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, sounds like me back in college too. Like you'd be hanging out with friends, and they'd let you pick the movie, and so you intentionally pick something that you knew that like everyone would hate, just so you could be like, look at this, look how cool this is.
Do you see?
Look at him eating the spaghetti in the bathtub. Isn't that amazing?
Well, I mean, folks at home, if you haven't been listening to the Cinema Speak podcast, very recently you and Santino had talked about watching Martyrs in a group setting. So yeah, that is very much par for the course when it comes to Brad's film exhibitions.
I've grown out of that. That was not my suggestion.
Well, was it your venue though?
No, it was actually we were at somebody else's place.
Okay.
So that was totally unrelated. I think the only thing I did was say that it's on Tubi. I didn't suggest it. I didn't put it on. I just said it's on Tubi.
Well, you ushered it along by suggesting that. It's like, oh, it doesn't appear to be available anywhere, and then Brad chimes in and says it's actually on Tubi.
It's on Tubi. It's free. You don't even need to pay for it.
But yeah, Brad is the sort that would do a screening of Martyrs in a group setting.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
Very good times. Anyway, I guess that's it for our basket/bucket of bees. But before we go, we'll close things out with our customary speed round, where we'll just like list off our runner-ups. So I guess I'll start collecting mine, and whoever gets to the finish line first can exhibit their goods.
I mean, I've only got a few. I'll kick it off.
All right, Brad, have at it.
I've only got a few here.
Go for it.
I'm a Vestron head, so I pulled out Blood Diner, which is just garbage. It's so bad. It's horrendous.
I'm sorry.
But, you got to do it. Number 2 on the spine. Boom.
What's number 1, by the way?
Number 1 is Chopping Mall, which is actually pretty fun.
That's a good one.
Chopping Mall.
Yeah, I can vouch for Chopping Mall.
They started pretty strong. These next 2 are my embarrassment bees, because these do have better releases, and unfortunately, I bought these like cheapo discs before those deluxe editions came out. First one, Blue Velvet. I love David Lynch, one of my favorites of his. So I've got the regular Blu-ray, don't have the Criterion. Maybe it'll get a 4K. So now I'm like, why should I even buy it?
There's a pretty good chance that'll happen.
Yeah, and this one, this I'm kind of sweating a little bit, getting back into alphabetization. This might be another one that might not be supposed to be under B's. Curious what your thought is, and that is the Burbs. The apostrophe Burbs.
In the words of the immortal Mills Lane, I'll allow it.
All right. Yeah, this one definitely has kept me up at night, because it's like, I know that it probably the title is the apostrophe Burbs.
Yeah.
So this should, like, in theory, although I don't know, would apostrophe come before numbers or after? That's a good question.
I mean, I don't know, actually. If you were to put an apostrophe next to a number, I wouldn't have an answer for you. That's a tough one. One is punctuation, one is a number. Like, ooh.
This is what keeps me up at night.
But
I love this movie. It's Joe Dante, right?
Yeah,
Joe Dante. Watched it when I was fairly young, and it's kind of stayed with me ever since. It's just such a fun little movie.
Yeah, Kyle's a huge fan of that one as well.
Yep. And it does have a Shout Factory release. Don't have that one. And then this last one is a movie from last year that was a big surprise for me, and that is Bacurau.
Oh, yeah.
Which I kind of went in hearing good things, had really no idea what the plot was. All I knew was that it kind of revolved around a village in, I believe it is Brazil, I think, according to the back of it.
I think that's what I remember from your review of it.
Yeah. And I really didn't know what it was about, what genre it was, and I was kind of ended up getting really taken along for the ride in here and having a real good time with it, not knowing where it was going. It was just a really solid, interesting watch that, obviously I might not get all the nuances because seems like it's, commenting on a lot of politics, so I might not get all the nuances of what it's saying regarding its home country, but you can kind of take some broad themes from it. And I think it works really well. Really well directed and really solid.
Yeah, who put out the disc, by the way?
This is a Kino disc.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know you had picked that one up.
Yeah, I picked it up. Was it there? When did I pick this up? It was one. They have so many sales. I don't even know when I got them. It was one of their sales in the past year.
Okay. All right. So for my speed round, okay, so I'm going to make you barf right out the gate.
Oh, God.
With some DVDs. So Brad is not a big fan of the DVD format, and I don't blame him. It's not the best to look at on an HD display. But I have here a documentary by Chris Bell, Bigger, Stronger, Faster, on DVD. This is a documentary about performance-enhancing drugs. And it's kind of presented in like a Super Size Me, kind of like edutainment style.
Okay.
So it's like the depth of it isn't like super deep as compared to some other like purely informational documentaries out there, but it has a strong narrative behind it. Interesting subject matter as well. Like some of it doesn't like have a strong argument for either side of the discussion. It tries to have its cake and eat it too, but it's an interesting premise and something that is continually relevant to this day, and it's a fun watch on top of that. So it's a documentary that I put on every once in a while just for funsies. I have Bowfinger, which is covered up by a Half Price Books price sticker, which is very hard to remove, and I don't have like a hairdryer or something to help with the adhesive removal, so I'm stuck with it. So it's like Bof, the movie. Bof. I'm a sucker for movies about about making movies, and I saw Bowfinger in the theater when it came out, and I've always had a very soft spot for it. I like Steve Martin in general. Eddie Murphy at this phase in his career was doing some really good work, and just the premise is a lot of fun. Just trying to make a movie without the principal actor knowing that a movie is being shot around him. And there's a lot of really fun subplots in there. In particular, the Mind Head. It's basically it's like a Scientology analog. Like the Eddie Murphy character is a member of the foundation, headed by Terrence Stamp, who is very well utilized in the film. But yeah, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together. KIT. And then, of course, Bone Sickness.
Oh, yes.
Often thought of as the worst movie a good friend of mine has ever seen. I saw this out in the wild in a secondhand store several years ago from Morbid Vision Films. And I had to have it. And I watched it, and good God, it's not good. It's far from the worst movie I've ever seen, but maybe that says a lot about the kind of movies I've watched. But Bone Sickness is just a running gag for me and my friend. Like I've yet to run into anyone else who's ever seen it. So it's a someday though in terms of like reviewing it for the show. Like I think I have threatened that in the past. But to continue the DVD train, I have the entire Bloodsport saga.
Wow.
Yeah, Bloodsport 1, Bloodsport 2, Bloodsport 3 Special Edition. My God, that cover is horrendous. And Bloodsport 4, the Dark Kumite, a.k.a. Bloodsport 4, the softcore porno. They're mostly all good, honestly. Like Bloodsport 2 and 3 are headlined by Daniel Bernhardt, who is, of course, one of the most prominent members of the 8711 stunt team these days, working with Chad Stahelski, basically the John Wick people, like that stunt crew. And he basically subs in for Van Damme for these films, and he puts in good work. And in fact, Chad Stahelski, the director of the John Wick films, has one of his earliest stunt roles in Bloodsport 2 and 3. As a fighter against Daniel Bernhardt. So this was the beginning of their working relationship, and now these guys are at the pinnacle of Hollywood stunt work. It's kind of neat to see like humble beginnings for everyone involved. So it's a treat to watch it now and be like, that's the John Wick guy? He doesn't look like much. but he had the moves even then, but obviously they've all come a very long way. And then to close things out, I have the Berserk movie trilogy. So that's the Golden Age arc, the Egg of the King, the Battle for Doldry, and the Advent, which I've always really loved this cover image.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, these movies are probably not the best representation of the story, being as it's adapted from a very long manga. And in fact, they had a full anime series, like a 25 episode series that covers all the ground, like the narrative ground that these films covered over the course of 25 episodes. So it's a weirdly condensed version of the same story. And I do have some issues with the animation style, because these days with Japanese animation, and just animation in particular, it's very hard to get away from utilizing computer elements. So they do this weird thing where a lot of, like, this takes place in a medieval European type setting, and all the armor, all the rigid objects are rendered in CGI, but all the faces are hand-drawn, like hand-painted cells. And it's kind of weird to look at. And the frame rate of the CGI elements is kind of janky. Like there's, it feels like it's not as smooth as it ought to be. And I have to imagine it has to do with like keeping costs down or expedience or something. It takes unfortunately a long time to adjust to. But if you can get past that, the story of Berserk, this in particular, the Golden Age arc, is fucking awesome.
Nice.
Like I would highly recommend checking it out if you're into I don't know, like medieval dark fantasy stuff. But like the appeal of this chapter of the story, anyway, for me personally, has always been the fact that it's like 80% just like medieval warfare, like just like people smashing each other with swords, and then like just a little bit, it's just like, oh shit, there's like magic and like crazy monsters in here, but it's like it's all hiding in the shadows, and whenever it inserts itself into the narrative, it makes it all the more jarring and like honestly kind of upsetting. like they get really intense with some of the shit in this, Brad. Like it gets pretty fucking heavy. Like real fucking dark. So right up your alley.
Now we're talking.
So yeah, highly recommended. If I mean, I know you'd be into this, but to anyone out there who can stomach some truly brutal ass medieval fantasy stuff. But yeah, that's it for all my B's. Calling it good at that. But that being said, thank you so much for joining me again, Brad, to talk some shelf tales and whatnot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. You're always welcome. But before we go, would you like to let the folks at home know where they can find you and your awesome podcast?
Yeah, we're the Cinema Speak podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the Cinema Speak, on Instagram Cinema Speak Podcast. We're on YouTube as Cinema Speak. You can listen on any podcast platform. Just search for Cinema Speak, and also on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
All right, thanks for that. And also, don't forget to check him out on the YouTubes. He's got some good shit out there. But anyway, if you'd like to catch up on any of our Catching Up on Cinema content, you can find all of that collected on our website at CatchingUpOnCinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias at the Instagram at CatchingUpOnCinema, as well as the Twitter at CatchingCinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. And the podcast is available on pretty much every platform you can imagine, including Cephalopod. So fucking Google it. And that being said, thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time.